In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. We have a few little housekeeping things to do. Number one is we would like to welcome Roy back. It wasn't the same without you. I won't say how, but it wasn't. So you were. Yeah. So we. Yeah.
No one had any answers when you were gone.
Yes, I know. It was. All we had were the crickets, and and you noticed that we're more crowded tonight. Not simply in terms of numbers, but also anyway. I'll leave that to your imagination. But we're very happy to, and I'm glad to announce that not only is Mr. Mutter here, but he asked me to announce that for all of you that are here and have any intention of buying any furniture, there's 50% off of anything you buy in the store. So we think that's very generous, and please feel free to shop, and be sure to tell your friends too. They could use the business. But anyway, all right. I want to finish up these. We're going through 10 points having to do with summarizing Socrates. 10 points having to do with it. And we talked about the idea of the virtues. And number 4 has to deal with the question of, the 4th point is, for him, what is the good life? What is the good life? The good life can revolve around many things. It can be popularity, power, wealth, beauty, intelligence, reputation, all of those kinds of things one can seek as the good life. But for Aristotle, the good life, those things, for example, not to pick on Mr. Mutter, but let's say the good life may be a good day of sales, in which they have a sale and everything is good. And that's fine. That's a good. That's a good. For someone else, it may be they got a contract from a business person that they were trying to get, and so on and so forth like that. So if we went around the room and asked you, what's the good life, you might say that. And Socrates would say, it's not really the good life. It's not really the good life. Because it's what? Why would that not qualify as the good life? Very good. It's temporary, because tomorrow they open and no one shows up, or it's a slow day. So it's a temporal thing, you see. So we have to know, if you notice, very important word, the. The notifies or designates something that is specific. It's also all-encompassing. It has to do with the notion of fulfillment. And you can't really be fulfilled if it is something that is temporal, because it can be taken from you, it can be broken, it can decay, it can be destroyed, and, as someone said, it can easily be replaced by something else, and not as good or good. In addition to that, this idea of the good. Notice Socrates did not ask the question, what are the goods of life? if it's freezing outside and raining, the goods of life would be a jacket, an umbrella, something like that. But if the sun comes out, it's no longer one of the goods. It's 90 degrees in July. You don't want a heavy jacket, anything like that. It's totally out of place. So there are various levels of good. There are basic goods of a material sort. There are basic goods of an intellectual sort. There are basic goods that are social. And there are basic goods that are spiritual. The basic goods are what we call primal goods. A primal good. It's something built into your very nature. Something that you have to have in order to exist. What are some of those? Food, water, air, all of those things, they're good. They're goods. Without them, you have a good chance of pushing up daisies, huh? In other words, you're dead. So these are the basics. These are the fundamental things that allow you to exist. And there are all kind of qualities here and so on and so forth like that. But human beings, if you're a naturalist, the intellect is nature's belief that the mind is sounder than instinct. The mind is sounder than instinct. Animals live by, non-humans, live by instinct. Instinct, fight or flight. This or that. And it's kind of they're wired. Human beings have the capacity to conceptualize, to plan, to articulate, etc., to adapt to many, many things on the basis of intellect. So you have intellectual needs. You have intellectual needs. And this has to do with feeding your mind. The danger is, because these are primal, they can tend to overwhelm this. They can tend to overwhelm that. And so, for example, you have a gigantic test tomorrow to see whether you're going to be qualified after taking 4 years of pre-med and all of this kind of stuff. And you're getting the books and you got everything together and you're ready to go. And they come knocking at your door and say, come on, we're going to have a big last day of school thing for a party down at Joe's. Now, anything wrong with going to Joe's? No, nothing wrong with that. Anything wrong with throwing a few down? No. Beer, pizza, and all that, whatever you have, I don't know, whatever it is, nothing wrong with that. That's a good. That's a good. But you have the big qualifying exam tomorrow. So you say, I'm not going. You're not saying this is bad. You're saying this is a hierarchical good. It's higher than. Can you go to Joe's another time? Can you go to Joe's and have beer and pizza with you? Yes. But you may only get one crack at this. And this is of a higher good. Therefore, you do not say this is bad. You delay it. You defer to that which is a higher part of your being. The higher part of your being is the development of your mind, your intellect. Because after you have the beer and pizza and you sober up and do all those kind of things, it passes, and maybe that weekend you go out again. And you go out some other time. the intellect tends to be more permanent. It tends to be more permanent. You learned it, you operate by it, you grasp it, etc. It tends to be more permanent, and it's of a higher part. It's of a higher part. The social dimension. What is the social dimension of a human being?
Being with other people.
Very good. That's right. You're being with others. That's right. To be with others. One of the worst punishments in prison is solitary confinement. To be alone with yourself. That's why people, especially today, find it so difficult to spend time in meditation or in reflection or in prayer. Because you're inundated with all these god-awful gadgets. And therefore, our ability to be amused, our ability to be distracted, has greatly expanded, while our ability to concentrate has been narrowed. And if you don't believe it, one of the most important gadgets in your house is that god-awful clicker to the TV. Those things wear out before anything else. Because as soon as they go to a commercial, or you got 2 seconds to gain the attention of the audience, and if not, because now you find another of the 5,000 stations that you can look at. And so what we do is what Philip Potsdam says, we're amusing ourselves to death. We're amusing ourselves to death. And therefore, you have to have the sound bite. You have to have the little grab of something. And you have to have the commercial now. And that commercial has to be within 10, 15 seconds or whatever it is. That's where you got to grab them. Even less than that. You got to hook them. Otherwise, they're on to something else. Our attention span. You know, we have attributed this condition in children, which is god-awful. It's attention deficit disorder. Okay? Years ago, it was called, you can't sit still in the seat. Huh? And the nuns came down and gave you therapy. It was usually a ruler, kneeling on rice, calling your parents, and you learn to sit in there without Prozac or all these other kind of things that we now shove into children's mouth and everything else, drug them up. And so they're zombies, but they're in the desk. That's the big thing. They're still because they're unconscious half the time. That's the problem. Okay. We are social beings by nature. We need others. We need others. The famous psychiatrist of the last century, Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson used to spend, as maybe I mentioned to you, a great deal of time, because he was a religious man too, by the way. He was a student of, he was one of the prize students of Sigmund Freud, but he broke with Freud. And Erikson spent a lot of time counseling clergymen, counseled a lot of clergymen. And they had this member of the Anglican High Church, you know, I mean, really up there, you know, perpetual state of nosebleed. Huh? And so they were up there real high. And the person was bordering on a nervous breakdown. He was a big bishop or some other such exalted, high potentate position. And they had all of that. And so they suggested that this guy go see Erikson, which he did. And he told him, you know, how he was having trouble now concentrating. He was short-tempered. He'd fly off the handle. He had trouble sleeping. His mind was all over the... And so Erikson said, well, tell me how you spend the day. Tell me how you spend your day when you get up. What you do. And so he went through this exhausting list of things. I mean, his calendar was jam-packed with stuff. That's what he did. And so Erikson said, well, what I want you to do is this. For this coming week, after you get finished eating lunch, I want you to go in your room, get rid of all your gadgets, all of your appointments, all of that kind of stuff. You don't see anybody, you don't answer anything, you don't do any of that kind of stuff. And you sit there for half an hour. And the clergyman looked at him and had this, a face filled with dread. And Erickson said, what's the matter? He said, you want me to sit there for half an hour? Okay. He said, yes. He said, that's what I want you to do. So the week later, the guy comes back, and Erickson said, well, how did it go? And he said, I'm worse. He said, you worse? He said, well, after you finish eating, what do you do? He said, well, I went in my room, closed the door. He said, but I had to finish some notes. I had to do this and that. He said, I told you, nothing. Nothing. In other words, detox. And this fear that came on his face, and Erickson said, what's the matter? He said, you want me to sit there for half an hour, just do nothing? He said, do you know what you're telling me? You're telling me that you are scared to death of being alone with that self that you inflict on people 18 to 20 hours a day. He said, you are scared to be alone with the very self that you force on others in various degrees of moods that you're in and all this other sort of stuff. You are basically afraid of yourself, and your work is an attempt to hide from yourself. There is your challenge. See, solitude is not just, yeah, okay. No. And then when you meditate or you contemplate, that's when you have to begin to deface yourself in a sense of who are you really? And so it's better to keep busy. You hear people say that all the time. You got a problem? Oh, well, keep busy. You're depressed? Well, let's go let's go to a movie. Let's go do window shopping. Let's go get a soda. Let's take a ride. And then, well, why are you depressed? What is the cause of it? Well, we don't want to go there. That has the no trespassing sign in front. Occupied. So the social dimension is something that we require. But that itself is not without its problems. Jean-Paul Sartre, the great influential philosopher of the 20th century, Sartre, in his book, No Exit, which used to be the Bible, especially of the avant-garde in the 20th century, middle of the 20th, well, early part, maybe the first quarter of the 20th century. No Exit. He says this, very simple. Hell is other people. Hell is other people. So, well, wait a minute. Hell is other people, but are we social animals? Sartre says, hell is other people because other people, they destroy your freedom. And being an existentialist, for Sartre, freedom is the maximum thing that you want to achieve. Freedom. Freedom. And so, well, how can they destroy? Because Sartre says, you know all those people that are your friends and this and that and all that kind of bosom wonderful stuff? You know what they do? And they can't help themselves. They do this. They look at you like this, and they are forever judging you. They're forever evaluating you. They're ever critiquing you and looking at you. Where did he get this from? Sartre was a little kid about 8, 9 years old. And he was being watched by his aunt in an apartment in Paris. And like all kids, inquisitive and wanted to experiment. And what did he want to experiment with? He wanted to experiment with a cigarette, which was forbidden. So little Jean-Paul got a hold of one of his aunt's cigarettes and matches. And he went in the bathroom. Should have gone under the house, like most of us did. But anyway, I mean most of you all. And he went there, and when he was flicking the match, you know, they didn't have the, whatever they have, what is that? Zippos, what is it? Zippo, Bic, whatever. So you didn't have that. You know, it's the old sulfur, you know, like this. And when he did it like that, the match top or whatever flew off, and it burned a hole in the rug that was on the bathroom floor. And Sartre said it was the worst feeling of his life. And that's when he determined that he hated God, and God needed to be dead. Because he said, I felt the eyes of God on the back of my neck. God sees you. He had heard that all his life. God sees you. And he said, I hated that God. And his whole life was the life of an atheist. And he transferred that to people. Hell or other people. I don't care how they appear to you and how they're nice and sweet and all those wonderful hypocritical things. What they really are is, oh my goodness, look at that blouse. Lord. I mean, there's got to be a better one than that. Or you must think he's Kermit the Frog. Huh? You know, he's there with his, I'm sorry. Look, it's a long story to this, okay? I'm over it, though. All of these kind of things. Or even if you happen to be sitting in the church, you know, with your rosary and your prayer book, and you're drenched in holy water and oils and everything else, and you're sitting there, and here comes Maybelle down the aisle for communion, and you're sitting there going, going to communion, can you believe that? My God, the host will turn black in her mouth. I bet. That's an old Sicilian curse, by the way. It's true. It is. Oh, it's terrible. But, and Sartre says, and what they do is they make these judgments about you. And you may really want to do something. And you think, what will the neighbors think? What will so-and-so think? Like that. So I can't do that. So I began to live in a straitjacket because I'm so compressed and so restricted by the opinion of others and what they think and their judgment. And Sartre says, that's what happens. And so hell is other people because they want to take away my freedom by this judgment, and so on, like that. Well, the answer, of course, could be, but other people are also heaven. They're also heaven. You just met the wrong people. Are you taking some traumatic first experience and you're generalizing it to people in general, like that. The social nature of a person is evident empirically and otherwise. It's also evident in the scriptures. And then you have the spiritual dimension, in which we seek mystery, transcendence. Have you noticed in recent years, see, in this highly secular society, this flat earth society, this horizontal society, go through your 5,000 channels that you have on your TV and look at the number of programs that explore the unknown, the mysterious, Oak Island, X Explained, with some old guy from Star Trek, William Shatner, somebody like that. The unknown. How many things catch on about mystery, the unexplained, the fascination in recent years with UFOs, all of these kinds of things, mystical experiences. Why? Because we are made for something beyond ourselves. No matter how flat the earth is, no matter how horizontal it is, there is a spiritual longing and hunger. And you see it's coming back again with these revivals. It might be actually the fourth Great Awakening in American history. There are 3 Great Awakenings in American history. This may be the 4th one. Young people now are flocking back to churches. Not always the Catholic Church, by the way. They're looking for experiences, encounters. They're looking for the holy and the sacred. They don't necessarily want rational arguments. They don't want necessarily moral lectures. They don't want a whole bunch of dogma and all of this kind of stuff. They want to have that experience of the transcendent and the holy. And in those churches that are providing that, their numbers are ballooning. Because we can't live exclusively on this flat earth kind of existence. If you believe that you're made in the image and likeness of God, then you have to believe that there is some connection with the transcendent or the holy. There's something beyond ourselves, something greater than ourselves that's calling us. Whatever that may be. You can call it God, you can call it the Buddha, Krishna, the moon, I don't care. Starting at very basic, fundamental human response, there is the pull of the sacred or the holy, which moves us upward. You see it in children, don't you? Especially in boys. Now, before I get accused of gender bias and all this other sort of stuff, just go look at the studies, especially recent studies, see, of the differences between boys and girls in terms of play activity. Play activity, very important thing, play activity. There is something in boys that has a tendency to push the limits. You get on the swing, and the boy almost invariably says, faster, higher. The girl tends to, that's not inferior and superior. The girl may have more sense. She may be more prudent, especially if you start getting wrapped around the pole at the top, things like that. But boys have a tendency then, when they learn to ride the bike, at some point, they take their hand off the wheel, off the bicycle bars, and they want to show that they can pedal without holding on, like that. or they want to go a little bit faster around that turn and stuff like that. Girls have a tendency, or females, they have a tendency to be more empathetic, more organismic, in that they tend to be more communitarian. They also tend to be more holistic in their thinking. Men tend to think analytically. You got a problem? Don't start crying and all this other kind of stuff, please. And don't tell me a story and all of this. Tell me what your problem is. Okay, here's the problem. Okay, these are the parts. Here it is. That's what you do. Take care of the problem. Oh, how heartless. Oh, my God. Men tend to be problem-solving. Women tend to be relational. Now, if that disturbs some of you, okay, get over yourself. Because a wonderful book that I would suggest you read, that was written by the great Carol Gilligan from Harvard University, way back in the 70s. Way back in the 70s. It's called In a Different Voice. And she, what did she do? She corrected the work done by, and I'm sorry to say, many Catholics became drunk on this Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Pre-moral, moral, transcendent moral, all these stages. This is when everybody was going through stages and steps and everything else like this. And he did this thing, and he said that every human being goes through a pre-moral stage, a moral stage, which is conventional, and then you have the heroic or the transcendent moral, where you're self-sacrificing and all this other sort of stuff. And he said everybody does that. And it's just a natural biological process, and men and women all do it the same way. And he was from Princeton, Kohlberg. So Carol Gilligan began to think about this, and she said, well, I don't think that's right. So the first thing she did was, because he had all of the empirical data, all the charts and everything else, it was terrific. There's only one problem. It was methodologically awful. Because what did he do? His sample involved 200 males from Princeton University. Now, most of us in here, if we were asked to take a sample, if you have a new product line from your store, you don't take 200 people from Princeton and say, do you like this? And say, oh, everybody will like this, especially if you're down on Burgundy Street. There's probably going to be some disconnect between where you are and the 200 that's running around Princeton somewhere. So she said, no, this is crazy. No. So she developed her own sample, drawing from over 10,000, male, female, from various socioeconomic backgrounds, etc., so on and so forth like this. And she showed empirically, through these tests that she developed, that men and women think differently and approach the world differently. Notice, please, not better, worse, superior, inferior. This is what Pope John Paul has been trying to say all along about men and women. It's complementary. It goes together, you see. Because I can't have Miss Marie sitting here, okay, with her problem, blubbering all over the place. See, the church is burning while she's blubbering. Well, if she cried enough to put out the fire, that would be one thing. We'd take her over there and say, okay, go to it, girl. No. At some point, I have to say, stop crying, go get the hose, and put the thing out, huh? Okay. But there are times in which your problem may be such that you don't want an analysis. For example, you have a child that has just died, or a loved one that has just died. and the doctor walks into the room with his chart, and you say, how could this happen? And he says, well, we took and we looked and we found out that this particular bacteria got into the lung, and the antibiotics that we gave him didn't quite work. So that's the reason he's currently dead. We go, what? No, you were asking why, but you were asking not why from the chart. You were asking a profoundly religious question. This meaningless thing that makes no sense on the surface, help me to make sense of it. And I don't want some guy dressed in a white gown with a cap on his head and some kind of thing around his neck carrying a bag and a book and read me a chart. I don't want that. I'm asking for something else. Now, I can't stay there as the doctor all day patting your hand and trying to give you grief counseling and all this other sort of stuff. But you need both. You need to have some level of sensitivity to the situation. But at the same time, if you're going to be an effective doctor, you have to be able to deal clinically with the situation. Is this yours? For years working at Charity Hospital in the emergency room, would get room 4s, or would get people who were involved, the weekend warriors. Weekend warriors were those who had too much to drink and thought that they were Rocky Marciano or somebody. They weren't. They were more like Don Knotts. And they'd come in various conditions of being the street mopped up with them. Some of them stabbed, some of them shot. We had to take their x-rays and zoom them right up to surgery and all of this kind of stuff and so on and so forth like that. And so you didn't have time to stand there and go, now tell me what happened. Tell me your story. Meanwhile, they're bleeding all over the place. Okay? Because by the time they get the story out, if they do, they have it cloaked already, you will have contributed to their death. You have to say, they got to get in and got to get out. Because you got the surgeons back there yelling that they want the x-rays. You got people outside crying and carrying on, making also a charity hospital, all kind of accusations against each other because you have both families there for some reason known only to God. They're all there. You have the police there who's adding nothing to the situation other than difficulty and all of this kind of stuff. And so you can't stand there. You can't stand there and do that. At the same time, you can't treat them as if they're nothing but a dog or a cat. So you have to have that balance, that complementarity. So a man may approach a problem, a good office manager would say, who can I get to handle this particular problem? John over here is great at analysis, production, ordering. He's great. But he's not the man to handle this problem. I have to go to Jane. She's competent, but she also knows how to deal with people at that particular level. Which one is better? In this case, I'm going to Jane. Nothing against John, because that afternoon I have a whole shipment of things coming in that need to be checked, and I'm not going to Jane. They would never be checked in. I'm going to John. So, again, the difference of this, and men tend to have a religious imagination or a spiritual imagination that tends to be very cut and dry. You did it or you didn't do it. It's a sin or it ain't a sin. That's it. I don't hear all that other stuff. Women tend to be, again, you say, well, you're talking in generality. Well, yes, I can't talk about every single individual. There are times when generalities are important. That's why you have such a thing as stereotypes. I says, oh, I don't like stereotypes. Oh, get over yourself. The reason you have stereotypes is because there's enough of those qualities, because they happen to be true to a given class, ethnic group, etc. Like that. Okay. But women tend to want to place things relationally. Not that I break the rule. Whom did I offend? Men don't care about who they offended. They want to know what's the rule. I don't care about your feelings. Get over yourself. Women tend to know. Now, not all. You have some women, that are dragons, and you have some men that think they're Alan Alda, You look at them and they cry. Oh, he's in touch with his feelings. Oh, Lord, please, spare me that. But okay. So you have these levels of need. So Socrates says, what is the good life? The good life is the virtuous life. Because the virtuous life knows how to take things that are really and lastingly good for the higher parts of your being, and either to delay or discipline yourself enough to avoid those things which are of a lower level, a more primal level, that can tend to corrupt the soul. So the good is the ability to choose that which fulfills you as a human being. As a human being. So if you are standing before something and you have a choice, you have to ask, what does this contribute to the development of my humanity? If I am going to have another gigantic piece of chocolate layer cake, and the doctor has told me I can't have it, I shouldn't have it because of the sugar and all this kind of stuff. Do I want it? Yes, I want it. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Will it taste good? Yes, it will please me. It will give me pleasure. Yes. Is it better, closer to the fulfillment of my good, if I say no to it? Yes. Why? Because of my health. Because I know it's not lastingly good. Once on the hips, forever on the lips. Okay. Well, yes, I did. Because I'm backward, and that's my thing. Thank you very much for the correction. See how you're infecting people? Now, so you have the virtuous life. The virtuous life is that in which you choose that which is really lastingly and permanently good for you among many goods that are laid out there for you. Many, many goods. And I think that that's an important part of for people in religion. You see, we have this idea that somehow we have to go around condemning things. What was it? A couple of weeks ago? Whatever it was, maybe it was last week. At Halloween. And you have a whole bunch of lunatic so-called religious types, of which I'm sorry there are many Catholics in this group. Okay? All they want to do is condemn Halloween. Why? It's satanic. It has to do with worshiping witches and all this kind of stuff. With not a clue in the world about anything. Like, who instigated or who started this idea of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day? Oh, the Catholic Church. What a beautiful response. You want to get people to really get into Halloween? Tell them they can't have it. That's that's kind of as old as, let's see, Garden of Eden. You get anything you want, except you can't have this? And what do they want? Ooh, I want that. I don't know if it's still there. It may not exist anymore. Go to Toys R Us or go to a video place and tell your little tyrant that you have, your child, and say, oh, you can have any of these. Oh, but you can't have that one. You can bet the tantrum is going to start, the screaming and yelling, the demand for it, and all of that, because you've forbidden it. So the church in its wisdom said, we're not going to eliminate it. In fact, we're only going to throw kerosene on it and give them the match. So what do? Yes, and we elevate it. We elevate it. You know, these spooks and goblins and ghosts and all of that? That becomes the souls who are now in the presence of God for their determination of where they're going to go. That's what we do. And instead of all of these witches and wizards and everything, we want to recognize all the saints who are in the presence of God. The everyday saints that we have lived with, to recognize them. That's what the church does. Workers' Day. Workers' Day. May Day. May Day is the big celebration in communist Russia. We celebrate the workers. No, 1917, Revolution and all that kind of stuff. So let's get there and condemn it. That kind of stuff. Oh, okay. So what does the church do? It dedicates it to Mary, the Mother of God, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have a thing called St. Joseph the Worker. In fact, we used to have a church. I don't know if it's still there. St. Joseph the Worker.
I got married to
Yeah,
St. Joseph
Go back. No. I'm just kidding. Yes, I mean, that's it, you know. So what does the church do? You can condemn. Go ahead, condemn all you want. Just go at it. And you know, you'll have a bad shoulder from patting yourself on the back. Oh, I'm so virtuous. Oh, yes, I condemned everything. As if somehow Jesus Christ came to put people into hell. It's the most amazing thing to me in the world. God so loved the world that he sent Jesus that you may indeed end up in hell. For some people, that's what the scripture says. That's crazy. Jesus Christ came so that we would be saved. And therefore, we ought to be elevating, educating, and inviting more than we are condemning. Because it's very, very difficult to get people to see something if you're wagging your finger in their eyeball all the time. Like this. Try it. Try it. You know that. You get something in your eye and they want to see it. Okay, so you're there doing this, and there they are trying to fool around with it. You're never going back to that nut. Of course not. Why would you? Your eye is worse. Now you need surgery. You didn't have a detached retina. You got one now. You just had a little speck in there. Now all of a sudden you can't see. You can't drive. That might not be a bad thing. But, okay, you get the point. Sometimes instead of a finger in the eye, they need a hand extended and say, well, maybe it's this way. Well, have you thought about this? Well, let me encourage you a little bit. You're not where you want to be, but that's okay. Few of us are where we want to be. And I dare say the people that we remember the most are those who are encouraging rather than discouraging, elevating rather than condemning. Even B.F. Skinner, you know, the rat guy, and operant behavior, stimulus response, and all of this kind of stuff. He said the least effective stimulus is a negative stimulus. The most successful one is a positive stimulation. You know that with dogs. You can yell and scream and everything at the dog. Oh, you get the dog to do what you want. But you look at the dog. The tail is between the legs. The head is down like this. It's dispirited. But if you take the dog and work with the dog with positive reinforcement, praise when they do something good, maybe even a treat, especially in the beginning. And then when they do something that you don't want them to do, you give them a correction. You go back over it. You withhold the treat, you withhold the praise, but you don't yell and scream at the dog. You go back and show them. And the dog catches on so quickly of what you want, etc. Well, in our canine part of our nature, we're the same way. If you come to confession every time and all you're going to do is get bawled out, I'm not saying you shouldn't be bawled out, but something more effective is to try to help that person to see that their behavior is, first of all, offensive to God. It's destroying them, and it's hurting a whole bunch of people that they care for. To help them to shift that, to widen those glasses a little bit, etc. You're likely to be more winning your brother and sister than by yelling and screaming at them in the confessional. Probably not coming back. Oh, you really gave it to him. Oh, I told him. That's great. That's wonderful. That's terrific. Now, where's your brother and sister? I don't know. Yeah, great. That was really good. No. So, we want to see this as the good life is that which is really good for us as human beings, to enhance our fulfillment as human beings. In other words, Socrates is making the audacious claim that virtue equals happiness. When you practice virtue, you are. I didn't say you were distracted. Also, please note what I did not say. That you're contented. I didn't say that you were contented. A cow, I think, has 6 stomachs. A cow is contented when all 6 are filled up. A person sitting on a Sunday afternoon, I would say the Saints, but I won't, sitting down there with their Doritos and their 6-pack and watching the football game, and everything, this kind of mindless, habitual, that kind of thing, no thought, whatever like that. Are they contented? Yes. Yes, they're contented. Are they happy? Socrates would say, no, they're not happy. They're contented, but they're not happy. Because happiness is the fulfillment of one's humanity. Is your behavior such that it is reflective of you as a human being, rational and free, a human being that is also intellectual, the mind, the soul or the spirit, and your friendships or your relationships are such that they fulfill you. Aristotle, the great philosopher, in his classic work, I think probably the best book ever written on ethics, the Nicomachean Ethics, is a whole chapter. It's one of the most beautiful, insightful chapters ever written on the question of friendship. You can take all this junk that's around today and save your money, don't get tapes and all this other kind of stuff. Read that chapter on friendship by Aristotle. Aristotle says something very interesting, which we probably initially you won't agree with. I'll go with Aristotle. Aristotle says, never make friends with your inferiors. Never make friends with your inferiors. Oh, God, that's so unchristian. Oh, Lord. Oh, God, just the thought of that. Think about it for a minute. Don't make friends with your inferiors. Why would he say that? Why would he say that? Don't make friends with your inferiors. They're very good. That's the right. Very good. Listen to that. What did you say, please?
You won't have anything in common.
Nothing in common. There's no mutuality. Who said something? Yeah, well, I know. Okay, what did you say?
In your mind, you will always be the dominant person.
Yes. Yes. You'll always be saying thank you. Thank you, thank you. There's something wrong with a relationship where you're always saying thank you. Because you're always receiving. Are you ever allowed for them to say thank you to you? Oh, no. Why not? Because you don't understand. I'm the giver. You're the receiver. See, you're the needy one. I'm the giver. In other words, I'm God. You're the creature. See? And some people do that all the time. See? They always want to be giving. And oh, isn't that wonderful? They're always giving. Yeah, I know they're giving. My question is, why are you giving? Do you ever allow others to give to you? You know, when they quote me the prayer. It is in giving that we receive. Oh, Lord. Sometimes it's receiving that you're really giving. Can you let another person, how do you feel when you give? Oh, I really feel good. Well, how do you think the other person would feel if they were able to give something? Yeah. So you want to see, it really can be selfishness. It also can be fear because you know your game. See, now you're beholden to me because we all have a little of the Godfather in us. I'm going to do you a favor, but I may never ask you. But there's going to be maybe a time when I ask you, and you better be able to deliver, buddy boy. See? So, I don't want to be in the debt of anyone. My Lord, why? You realize that one of the great things that you do in life when you take a shower or you're in the bathtub is to navel gaze. Navel gaze is a wonderful thing. We hear that all the time. You shouldn't navel gaze. Why? It's a great thing to do. Because what does navel gazing remind you of? That we all begin as parasites. Every one of you in here is a parasite. Even me. You're all parasites. You see, because from the beginning you fed off of somebody. Sorry. I'm a self-made man. No, you're not. No, you're not. You just have a short memory and you're basically stupid. That's your problem. Unless you don't have a navel. I don't know. Maybe you don't. But that's how we begin. And what a terrible thing to forget your mother. Jesus Christ had a navel because he was fully human. The Blessed Mother was the first one to receive the Eucharist, as no human being will ever receive the Eucharist. The body and blood of Christ. She received it first. So all of this stuff about she wasn't at the Last Supper. No, she was at the First Supper. Try that one. And if you really believe that Jesus is truly human, then don't tell me he didn't have a navel. Because that's not, because then you're denying the incarnation. So if that offends you, that Jesus Christ had a navel, you also deny that he was fully human, completely human, totally human, as Scripture says. And he had to go through the natural gestation process and had a real human birth. A real human birth. Has Mary experienced. Because Mary is human. Only the most aberrant Mariology people want to elevate Mary into a god or a goddess, because the one who would be most offended by that and objecting to that would be Mary. Would be Mary. So when you say, it reminds us that we're all dependent on various things. And this ability to express gratitude and so on and so forth is also to recognize that life is connected to life. Life is a part of life, etc. And so we are beholden to others. And happiness is that fulfillment of our humanity which requires these things in its proper way, in its proper selection. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what does all of this have to do with the Catechism? Well, as I've attempted to try to get you to do with varying degrees of success, is to look in the table of contents, or as some people say, content. We used to like you, Betty. It's the company you keep. Remember. If you look at this, please, in the table of contents, we're dealing with, you have this edition, or whatever you have. It's part 3, Life in Christ. And it deals with the morality. But if you look there, we're going to go over this much later. But what we did go over and have gone over is, if you look at Article 7, Article 7, Part 3. 7.3. Part 3, 7. It has to do with what? No. Well, yes, Roy. But we forgive you. It's the anesthetic wearing off of you. That's what it is. So don't worry about it. It's all right. We understand. See, if I was analytical, I'd go over there and grab the book and show you where it is. But since I'm relational and have compassion for you, not really. Do you have it? What? Okay. I'm sorry? You got what? That's right, we have. Very good. See how encouraging I can be? Look at this. Yes, for me. Article 7, the virtues. Human virtues, which we talked about, are the cardinal virtues, acquired virtues. Theological virtues, the infused virtues. And then you have the gifts and fruits of the Holy Spirit. So that section is in there. So when we cover something, again, as I've asked you to do, is to go to the table of contents and look to the corresponding section of that to see what this is talked about. And final little thing about happiness is that St. Thomas Aquinas says that happiness, do you have it? You still looking for it? Oh, okay. Happiness, St. Thomas Aquinas says, has two dimensions. Proximate and distal, or ultimate. Proximate happiness has to do with life on earth. It's a foretaste. Can one experience happiness, let's say, in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament? Yes. But it is a passing happiness. It's a fleeting happiness. Because at some point you are going to leave the church and you are going to have to worry about what you're going to eat at 6 o'clock. And you may have to worry about a sick child. And you may have to worry about getting up in the morning. And you may have to worry about the sales calls you have to make or what's going on. So all of that. That happiness was real, yes. It was fleeting, though. It's not permanent. None of us lives in a state of complete blessedness, complete like that. We have other things that grab us, etc. But true lasting happiness is distal or ultimate or eternal happiness. And that comes with the beatific vision. The beatific is blessed. In other words, for blessed. It is to see God and to be in the very mind and presence of God for all eternity. For Aquinas, it is to think the mind of God. To think that God's thoughts are your thoughts. God's ways are your ways. See? And so, the beatific vision is the, St. Thomas Aquinas says in the Summa Theologica, respire ad finem. Look to the end. Look to the end. Look to the end, the telos. And what is the ultimate end for human beings? Okay. To be with God. Yes. It is the fulfillment. Fulfillment means what? Fulfillment is that which reveals our full, complete humanity in terms of what it was made for or what it was made to enhance or to experience. And while all the things here are fleeting and passing, in the presence of God, which is eternal, and in eternity there's no time, as you know. Everything is present. It makes no sense to talk about past or future in eternity. Everything is present because there's no time. So this is the complete fulfillment of happiness. Notice, please, the church, especially Augustine and Aquinas, once again, taking our principle of not condemning or looking down upon, etc., it takes the human virtues or the natural virtues and it elevates them to what kind of virtues? Theological virtues. Very good. We just have it in the book there, folks. So, that's what you have to do. Well, It's the theological virtues. The theological virtues. How do you get the theological virtues?
They're infused.
They're infused. Very good. What does it mean to say it's infused? No, you're not born with it. Well, an infused means where do you get it from?
God.
From God. It's God infusing. Means it enters. It's not an achievement. It's not something you get or acquire. It's not something you acquire. It's a gift. You have the capacity. You have the capacity. But because a person has the capacity, does it mean that they will, in fact, get them? No, because you can refuse them. It's called sin. I refuse. I refuse to believe. I refuse to hope. I refuse to believe in the real body and blood of Christ. I refuse to believe. God does not force you. God is not a tyrant. God is not some kind of Mideastern potentate or some kind of Nazi troop or some kind of government agent with a search warrant or without a search warrant. It doesn't matter anymore. So, no. You're invited, but we're all made for that capacity. But that's the difference between potential and actual. Remember, we talked about that almost from the beginning. Potential and actual. Not every potential is actualized. And every potential that is actualized may be in varying degrees. You have a great capacity to be a great intellectual. This gentleman here, same thing. You study and you work and you do all that kind of, you dedicate yourself. Well, you're going from potential, because you're a human being, you're actualizing that to a significant degree. This gentleman here, who has many obligations, burdens, with home life, and all of that kind of stuff to go, that's too numerous to go into, okay? I don't want to make you sad. And so he doesn't have the time to do that. But he does what he can do. He does what he can do. And God bless him. And you say, oh, you're much smarter than he is. No, not necessarily. Maybe you have the capacity or the circumstance to live more of a monkish life. You may live by yourself. You may be independently wealthy or whatever it is. You don't have those burdens or those responsibilities. So you're able to actualize more than he is. But he has the capacity, and he has actualized some of it. He has actualized some of it. So, again, the idea of potential and actual. We have the potential because God wants everyone to be what? Yes, everyone to be saved. But not, now, one little final point, let me point it out. Aquinas makes the distinction between vincible and invincible ignorance. What does the word vincible mean? What's that? Now, what is vincible? If you're vincible, vincible.
You have limits.
You have limits. Yeah, you have limits. You're vincible. What is invincible? That's right. You can conquer whatever it is. I sit in the classroom for a year, taking this course, and I have to take a test at the end. I haven't, and I'm pretty smart. I haven't opened a book. I haven't thought about it or studied it. I'm going because I have to go, because it's part of the some requirement that I may have. And you turn in your test paper, and you have Even a squirrel, finds an acorn. A blind squirrel finds an acorn. And so let's say you get a 20, which is an F. Well, were you ignorant of the answers to the questions? Were you ignorant of the answers to the questions? Yes, you were ignorant. You didn't know, right? Did you know the answer? Well, no. Did you know the answer to the question? No. You had the capacity. So is that ignorance vincible or invincible? It's vincible ignorance. I could have overcome it. Why didn't I overcome it? Because I didn't study. Now, what is an invincible ignorance?
Beyond your capacity.
Beyond my capacity. I take a 10-year-old child just out of a classroom, and I give them a problem in astrophysics. Is that child ignorant? Is he ignorant? He's not ignorant? He doesn't. He can answer the question?
Well, he's not ignorant.
Is
He's just never been taught.
hold on, you're not answering the question. You're jumping ahead. What I'm saying is he ignorant? What is it? Ignorant is yes. That's right. Ignorance is not stupid. There is a difference between being stupid and being ignorant. Stupid is an incapacity. It's a lack of something basic in order to achieve something that is basic and understandable. To be ignorant of something, Socrates learned ignorance. I know that I know not. He doesn't apologize for that. In fact, the oracle commends him for that because he knows that he doesn't know. The most dangerous people are people who think they know and they don't know. You've ever been around them? Yeah. I have. Well, we won't go into that. An ignorant person that says, I don't know. The bathroom's right in the back. Yeah, David. You want to go with? You want to go with? That's virtuous. A person who says, look, you showed me this computer. I don't know how to do it. That's virtuous. That's virtuous. It is self-knowledge of my ignorance. I'm not apologizing for it. I don't need to. I don't understand it. Sorry, I don't understand it. I'm ignorant. I'm not stupid. If you show me, I may be able to catch on. Maybe my mind doesn't work that way. Maybe I'm not wired. Maybe I'm more wired to athletics or art or narratives or things like that. We say I'm not mechanically inclined. Okay, I get it. There's some people, they look at something 2 seconds and they can fix it, put it together, and do it. It's a great gift. Okay, but you ask them to read a novel or a poem, and it means nothing to them. That's not a moral failure or something wrong with them. Their mind doesn't work in that particular direction. That's why if I have a poem, I'm going to go, Maria here. If I have an analytical problem, I may go to Betty here. Which one is better? Well, it depends. Do you want a poem or do you want an analytical answer to a problem? So it have to be without demeaning either one. So invincible ignorance is ignorance that you can overcome. And maybe you're vincibly ignorant because no one ever taught you. A person who has never been taught to read lives in the backwoods somewhere or in a bush somewhere in another world, country or whatever. And once you begin to get down the alphabet and the sounds and things like then they can read. That they were not invincibly ignorant. It wasn't a fault. It was a lack of an opportunity or to have a teacher. So Aquinas says there is a vincible and an invincible ignorance. There is an ignorance through no fault of your own. A person who has never heard the gospel, has never been taught the gospel, is that person vincible or invincibly ignorant? Vincibly ignorant. Yes. The person never been taught. Y'all have no problem with the idea of giving a kid, and you all puzzled over the fact that a person has never been taught the scriptures. And think about that. We show more compassion to a kid who, again, that tells us something about our mindset, doesn't it? If a person has never heard the gospel preached, that's why we believe in evangelization. What is that? Go out and teach. By example. By opening the scriptures. And so on and so forth like this. So that's why when we begin moral analysis of things, we have to ask ourselves, at what level or capacity is that person's moral development? You go into a church and you hear some sermons, and you're exhausted by them. You say, my God, perfect this and total this, and then you go, my God, I came in, I knew I was bad, but I didn't think I was that bad. God, what a mess I'm in. Go on and so forth like that. Huh?
Not sure, sir.
No, mine are just long. We already know that. Thank you very much. You can come sit over here with him and this one. I used to like you. I don't. See how you have begun to metastasize this whole group? I hate to think of April. My God. Yeah, yes, it is. It's going around. Where's Dr. Fauci when I need him? All of y'all need mass. Some people need no encouragement to do this, by the way. So you have this. Vincible and invincible ignorance. And if you come across a person who maybe has a mental deficiency, that you're talking into concepts and they have no idea what you're talking about. Let me talk to you about the consubstantiation of the Father with the Son, and yet I'm going to work in the Holy Spirit because it's also through homoousios that they're able to have both natures, the nature of God and the nature. Huh? Why? No. An important part is to be able to convey complex things that are understandable. Nobody's talking about dumbing down. Nobody's talking about insulting you. But you can use all the highfalutin words, but if people don't understand it, all you've managed to do is to show how really ignorant and prideful you are, because you haven't communicated. And the gospel is meant to be communicated. So it sounds wonderful and terrific and great. As George Bernard Shaw said, every profession is a conspiracy against the laity. And it's true. And you don't have to go into a pulpit for this. Go talk to your doctor. I'll tell you what you do. Go bring your car in and let them go under the hood and explain to you why you thought was a spark plug is really a carburetor and everything else involved. And you don't have a clue if he's lying or not lying. You have no idea what that is. You're in a very powerless position because you are ignorant. Yes, ignorant. And so you may be smart enough, though, to get a second opinion. Or say, which most people don't do for some reason, to a doctor especially. Time out. I don't understand what you're talking about. Can you explain it to me either simpler or another language? And that's a very legitimate and a very important thing to say. If the priest is saying something to you in the confessional or whatever and you don't understand it, or it doesn't make sense, time out. There's no need to sit there and go like this, and you're really going like this, because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. You know, I mean, we elevate all these people to gods because they have a language. You know, there's a story, about this guy, good man. He died, and he went to heaven. He made it. But he found out something he had to get used to. In heaven, you know, David will like this. In heaven, you still had to eat. And the only problem with that was this. Food was served in a cafeteria. And you had to stand in a line, first come, first served. So I'm in heaven. You mean I got to stand in line? This is ridiculous. The food was wonderful. So they're standing in line. And the guy's still not peachy keen on this idea of standing in line. You get that? Because he gets there early. And they're standing there waiting, and it's about 2 or 3 minutes to 12. You know, and you know how you shift weight, stuff like this. If you're in the grocery store, you run over the Achilles of the person in front of you and put them in the hospital for 6 weeks or 6 months. You're doing that. And they're standing there, and through the swinging doors comes this little fella, got a balding head. He's got a book, his hand like this. And he goes right to the front of the line. Well, that's too much for this guy. He says, wait a minute. He says, did you see that? Did you, standing here, look at that line. Did you see that? He went right to the front. And the guy in the back of him goes, get used to it. That's God. He thinks he's a doctor. See, so the whole problem is that we deify these people when the most important thing is to say, I don't understand. I don't know. A lawyer will tell you, in a courtroom, if you don't understand the question, you say, I don't understand the question. And the judge may say, rephrase the question. You don't remember. I don't remember. Some people don't want to say that. So they start rambling. And when they're rambling, they're opening all kind of doors for cross-examination. It's perfectly legitimate to say, I don't understand. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. Somehow that strikes us as, oh, Lord, I don't want to do that. That's pride talk. That's not knowledge talk. But men are famous for this, huh? Like when they're driving and they're going on a trip. And somebody says, I don't think we know where we're going. Yes, I know. They go on. Let's stop and ask for directions. No, I know where I'm going. No. The whole while you're getting deeper and deeper, farther and farther away from your destination the whole time. So you can't do that. And the GPS is unreliable as he is, you know, and so on. But no, we can't stop to ask for directions. No, can't do that. No, I know where I'm going. Or the one in the car who should be thrown out is the person who says, oh, I know a shortcut. Oh, Lord, get that person out of your car so fast because you will never get to where you're going. There's more people lost with shortcuts than anything else. All right. So vincible and invincible ignorance is very important in terms of our knowledge and moral evaluation. So when we say all these things, we have to ask a question: at what level of development is a person? You say, well, I'm making a judgment. Yes, I'm making a judgment. I'm making a judgment not about whether they're a good or bad person. I'm making a judgment about their capacity to do something. We all do that. You don't want to ask somebody to do something that you know they can't do because you're setting them up for failure. Now, you can ask me to go pick up some big heavy thing. I'm not going to be able to pick it up. So I'm useless. I'm going to be an obstacle rather than an asset. I'm going to be a liability because somebody's going to have to pick me up. And I say, well, I can't do this by myself. Or I can help, but I can't. I can't pick up this big whatever it is. But we have this kind of shame or inadequacies by saying, I don't know. I don't know. Socrates would go, beginning of wisdom, that you know that you don't know. How else can you learn? Nothing wrong with that. So we have to be careful about this. So the good life is connected to the virtuous life. The virtuous life, properly understood, is connected to happiness, of which Aquinas says there is a proximate happiness, which is fleeting, but as St. Paul says, it is a foretaste and promise of what God has in store for those who love him. It's a foretaste and promise. It's a hint. It's a rumor of angels. It's like an hors d'oeuvre before the main event. Okay? And the ultimate happiness is blessedness in the very mind or vision of God, in which we don't confuse happiness with contentment. We don't confuse that. And we learn to fulfill ourselves, human beings, by the virtues which are excellences of the soul, excellences of the mind, excellences of the body, and we acquire the virtues through practice. The practice of the natural virtues, the moral virtues, the acquired virtues. You practice them. They're a skill. The theological virtues are the infused virtues, which requires an openness to receive the gift of faith. But you don't get it because you're a good person. Faith is open to all people. Circumstances can mitigate that. There are many people who, if given the chance, could really be great stars. What time is it, Debbie? Okay, a few more minutes. Hang in there. I saw, 8:40. There was a great interview with Paul Newman, the great actor. And this man was interviewing Paul Newman. Very, very good exchange they were having. And the guy was going on about what a wonderful, terrific actor Paul Newman is. And I think it's true. He's a very good actor. And went on and on. And after this kind of gushing over him, Paul Newman said, wait. He said, let's gain a little perspective here. He says, I can think of about maybe 50 to 75 people right now that would make me look like a rank amateur that you never heard of in terms of acting. And the guy goes, kind of pulls back. He says, well, what do you mean? How can that be? And Paul Newman said, exposure. He had to explain it to the guy because he didn't get it. Paul Newman got seen. in the right place at the right time by the right people. You can call it fate, grace, luck, chance, take your pick. There are many people who have great things, but they're never seen. They're very quiet. They're very humble. They don't go, some people do it and they parade themselves. We understand that. Okay, and maybe that's their goal in life, is to be well known in a certain profession. Okay, it's fine. But then there are those who are, if you want, very, very quiet and humble, and you don't realize it until they're gone. Like your liver, huh? Most of us don't think about our liver until it acts up. And try living without one. It's difficult. You'll be pushing up daisies. We have these things, and that virtuous life is a life that is not simply for this world, but if you live a virtuous life, you have a better chance of being happy in some degree. And if you live a life of vice, you're likely to be unhappy in the long run, if not the short run. When a person is feeling bad, or their life is falling apart in places, they immediately throw it into the realm of the therapeutic or the psychiatric. Oh, I got to go to my therapist. Oh, I got to have my medicine changed for my moods. They never ask, what virtuous-wise or even spiritual-wise am I off the beam here? What now has changed, either in terms of virtuous living or spiritual development, that has now allowed this to creep into my life? You know, we quickly think that somehow I'm going to go to the therapist. And for many people today, religion is therapy. It's not that. It's not the therapeutic. See, because therapy is supposed to make you well-adjusted. Well, the Christian, if you're going to be a Christian and a follower of Christ, you are going to be maladjusted. You're going to be alienated. You're not going to fit in. You're going to be a little odd. And many people are not comfortable with that. So they try to take Christianity and tailor it to where it's compatible to the culture. No. We want to live a witness that sends a message to the culture that this is, you want a just society? You need just people. You want a loving society? Be a loving person. Because it's hard to have a loving society and children growing up that way if they look at video games, where it's estimated that in the course of a year of a child watching video games, they will see over 5,000 murders. And now we tell them, we want you to be nice and peaceful and so on and so forth like this. I hate to bring up this topic, but I will, because it's a relevant one. We're now engaged in this crazy debate, in my opinion, granted, editorializing, of men and women participating in the same sports. Okay? The same sports. You know, have women and men play and all this kind of crazy stuff. Okay? All right. Now, it's even filtered down in some districts to boys and girls competing with each other in wrestling, boxing, and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, now, You're now 15 and 16 years old, okay? Now you're told, don't put your hand on a woman. Treat a woman with respect. Honor a woman. Oh, by the way, I want you to go and knock a block off right now because we want to win the championship. Now you ask me who's crazy. It's not that kid. It's the nutty adults who are usually the problem, you see, in wanting to be with it. And we want to have this equality. If your definition of justice is equal treatment, nobody in this room wants to be equally treated. Don't tell me you want to be equally treated. You have a handicap? Well, we're going to have big stairs up there and everything else. Now, you know what? I really don't care about your handicap because these other 10 people, they can make it. You make it. I'm treating you equally, so don't you dare tell me I'm being unjust. You want a special parking spot? Get that thing down. Get that thing down. Tell me about a special parking spot. You didn't get here? Too bad. You got to walk the length of Walmart? That's your problem. Because somebody else will have to do it. Equal treatment is only relevant among people of equal conditions, not simply equal in terms of sameness. You have people who have difficulty seeing. So we may have tests for them that's in Braille. Because the test has nothing to do with can they see. It has to do can they perform the job. It's an intellectual. So we have that. And we think that that's a good accommodation. Why? Because they're taking the same test. But as a society, we have decided that we don't want to lose that brain power over something like equal treatment is the same. Well, okay, then what you do is give everybody in the class the Braille test, and don't give them their printed test. Well, you say, well, that's crazy. Really? That's crazy? Well, okay, well, then let's give everybody the written test without the Braille. No. See, that's the problem. We want to make accommodations when relevant. But to just say blanketly, justice is equal treatment. You know, it's like the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, first of all, I want to know what they want done to them. Because there's a whole bunch of people got things want done to them. I want done to me. It ain't gold, because I'm looking to get out of there. So these wonderful little things that we throw out there, once unpacked, you say, I don't really know if I buy that or not. Do we make accommodations for certain needs? We talk about special needs. And I'm not poo-pooing that. I think that that's a sign of a very humane, moral, and caring society. And we should. I hope we would. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is somehow to say, that we all have to be treated the same, etc. But what signals are we sending to children? And you just told me to go punch her or to pin her down or whatever the thing is, if it's wrestling or boxing or whatever, some other crazy sport that you're doing. But not now though. Not now. Don't do that because it's confusing. Now quarantine those things because now, and we want to know why they're confused. I mean, excuse me. But that's just one example of this kind of stuff going amok.
You want to hear another example?
Yes.
You just don't want to let it done. You got one in the House of Representatives. You can treat this with, how do you want to treat the issue?
Yeah. Yes.
It's another example.
Yeah, I mean, it's this, and also the not to get off on this, but the whole question of gender, question of gender. You can't be wrong about a man and not affect a woman. You can't be wrong about a woman and not affect a man. we believe that there are relevant differences between men and women, which ought to be obvious to anybody above the age of maybe 5 or 6. Not better, complementary. The two become one flesh. Male and female, he created them. But biologically, physiologically, chromosome, genetically, take your pick. We have come to the idea that differences means superior, inferior. In other words, what we see life now is a seesaw. If I'm up, you're down. If I'm up, you're up, I'm down. That's life now. See, it's this way. It's this way. And that's the only way for the seesaw to work. Well, then all you have is a society of winners and losers. That's what it is. That's what it is. Now, when you got a society of one winners and one losers, how do you get people to work for the common good? I'm sorry, you don't. And that's what you have. How many won the election? How many did this? How many did, oh God, whatever that. And then we have them up there, now we have to come together and work for the common good and all of this. Oh, give me a break, please. I have a terminal case of vertigo from this thing. I'm so confused. You hear people calling, which I think is just horrendous, indicating that, I'll say it. The president-elect is a certified Nazi and is devoted to Hitler and all of this kind of stuff. Please stop that. That's absurd. Any more than it's absurd that somebody who believes in welfare programs and so on is an avowed atheistic communist. And take your pick of that. This rhetoric that's out there right now, the rhetoric. The easy thing, as we found out with the Revolutionary War, is to win the battle. The hardest thing is to win the peace. After the Civil War, one of the great tragedies of the Civil War is what happened afterward, the assassination of Lincoln. Because Lincoln, malice toward none, charity for all. And John Wilkes Booth took care of that. We may have had that's one of these what if, but we may have had a very, very different society and world today. But he knew the importance was not in a kind of totally vanquishing of the other. It was in reconciliation. Not reconstruction, reconciliation. And, for example, one of the greatest generals in American history and of the Civil War was Robert E. Lee. Yeah, I'm sorry. This one said Grant. She's obviously a Yankee transplant. What we've always suspected. But okay, leaving that alone. Robert E. Lee. In Avery Thomas's magnificent book entitled Lee. And it's a biography, obviously, of Robert E. Lee. And after the Civil War, Robert E. Lee settled in the northern part of Virginia, etc., and also would frequently go into Washington and attend St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Still there, by the way. Because he was an Episcopalian. And one Sunday morning at the Mass, because Episcopalians have Mass, it's not the Roman Mass, but it is just about, it's a Mass. Okay. So while they're there in St. Paul's, the congregation is let's just say it's snowing. They're all white. Except for one person, a black man. And he's sitting in the back of the church. And it's time for communion. And the black man gets up to go to communion and kneels down along the thing. And everybody in the church kept their fanny in the seat and refused to go up to communion because nobody wanted to be kneeling next to him because he's black. Robert E. Lee gets up out of his pew, walks down the center aisle and goes and kneels next to him on this side so that he would get communion first. Not Lee, but the black man. And the priest is frozen there for a moment, and slowly members of the congregation come up and begin kneeling to receive communion because of the example of one man. One man. See, that the power of that example, you know, and I think that, you know, that took great significant moral courage to achieve that kind of reconciliation in an act. The war was over. The South had surrendered. It was over. And it was a time for people to kneel at the same rail. But they needed somebody to show the example. Who are those people today? Now that all of this is over, and thank God it ended in one day, and we don't have these terminal controversies and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, here's the hard part. The hard part is to win the peace. We have become so used to living on the battleground that we have forgotten the common ground. And there better be more that unites us than divides us. Because if not, we have lost the war. E pluribus unum, the one in the many. And when we're going to play this stuff, and it has to be more than rhetoric. And the president-elect, has a magnificent opportunity because he is only a one-term president. He only run 4 years. Second president, other one being Grover Cleveland, to have the split that took place. But one term. He can hit the ground running, and he doesn't have to worry about an opinion poll, what the money is, who's going to back him, who's this and that. None of that kind of stuff anymore. He can do what is right for the common good. And I believe, contrary to all of the things that have been said since 2016 or 2015, when he first came down the elevator and was demonized and everything else you could do to this man. I don't care if you like him or not. It's irrelevant. And all of that. You have seen a metamorphosis and a maturing and a change, if you want. Still who he is. But there is I don't want to say a softer, but I think there is a more, a wiser and more broader vision of what's possible in that office. Remember, this is the man who established the Abraham Peace Accords. I watched the ceremony. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It was magnificent. If you'd have said that to anybody. I also saw this president, the first one in over 50 years, walk right over into North Korea and to watch Little Rocket Man come over into South Korea. First and only president ever to do it, and ever since. He also, as this gentleman indicated, moved the capital to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. They all had talked about it. Oh, we're going to do That's right. He's also the only president to publicly appear at the Right to Life rally Not a video, not a message over, not a de-incarnational kind of show activity and all this kind of stuff. He went. He went. Now, and okay, all the cynics can come and all the people that are jaded and, oh, he just did it for votes and he just did it for this and that. Well, it didn't work. It didn't work. In the past, in the past? Every saint's got a past, every sinner's got a future. So, okay, do we all want to be held to some position that we had 30 years ago? I doubt it. You want to be held to one snapshot of your life at your worst moment 10 years ago? Probably not. It's this kind of stuff. It's this kind of stuff that is really, really, it's eating at us. It's eating at us. The resentment, taking poison and expecting somebody else to die. We've taken this poison. But anyway, it's enough of that. But I think it needs to be said, because we need men and women of virtue. Men and women who are really concerned about what your catechism talks about extensively, the common good. Not simply what fits my little tribe, my little interest, and you go ahead and take care of yours. You go. Oh, by the way, we want to work for the common good. I mean, you just told me to be all in on my little group, and now you're telling me about the common good. What happens when what happens when my little tribe good conflicts with your little tribe's good? Okay, what do we do then? Well, we know what we do. We get the PR guys, we get the videos, we get the enemies, people who go out and find all the bad things about them, and we do all of that, and then we talk about reconciliation. But, again, I think that these things are very, very important. And next week, please, it's very relevant as a lead-in. Next week, we want to look at the allegory of the cave. And how would you apply that to today? I mean, it might as well have been written right at this minute, right at this moment, how it fits in. And so what I'd like you to do is to look at the allegory of the cave and see what connections it has with our situation today. And again, this is written over 2,000 years ago. Over 2,000 years ago. And it could be written today. It could be written today on many levels. And then we're going to see how that allegory connects to the divided line. And then how theologically that connects to elements of the catechism and our understanding, especially between appearance and reality, what counts for knowledge, and things like that. So if you could do that for next time, please. And if you could look that up, and we'll go over it, because I think it's, again, you can take your morning newspaper and read The Cave and look at that, and look at what's going on in your television and all this other kind of stuff, which is a very wonderful connection, and see and say, wow, I can't believe this was written over 2,000 years ago. Just read it. And it's not, don't worry, look, it's not all this philosophical mumbo-jumbo and all that. It's an allegory. You can easily understand it, easily connect with it. So you're not going to have to worry about jargon and terms and all this kind of stuff. But it's very important. And we can see how it would, because remember, for St. Augustine, the major philosophical foundation for Augustine is Plato. For Thomas Aquinas, it's Aristotle. And we're going to see that as we progress. So, thank you for your patience and your kindness. And let's close with a prayer, please. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Where do we get that from, the allegory?
You can get it, we'd have to look it up on your, no. Yeah, you'd have to, yeah, and you just ask for the text or something like that. And it'll give you, because it's in Plato's Republic. It's in the Republic. But the Republic is about that big and about that like that. But the allegory of the cave is just a few pages. It's not long. It's not a big long thing. It's very short. But I mean, again, just read it and you'll say, I can't believe this. This has to be from somebody today. Oh no. And we'll see the connections it makes, especially in terms of, well, many things. But I want to see what you come up with in terms of that. So if you could do that, please, for next time. And let's end with the prayer, but I thank you for your patience. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty and gracious God, we offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving for this time together. We offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving, O Holy Spirit, for your indwelling presence, opening our minds and hearts to your presence and to your truth. Please help us always to live in this world with our eyes on the next, our hope on the next. And we ask you, O Sacred Heart of Jesus, to please protect us in our